Here I am with Joe Hoft of the Gateway Pundit. Joe, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, honor to be here.
I got to tell you something. You know, I watch the Gateway Pundit regularly. I watch the stories you all have come out, and I love not only the consistency, but the quality of the information that you all get out. And I'd love for you to talk about some of the stories that are coming up.
Yeah, it's been amazing here this past couple days.
It has.
A lot of people have come up and just said, hey, we love the Gateway Pundit, and we love what you're doing, and it's the first place that they go to. And so that's pretty cool.
Right.
And yeah, and it's a great sign. My brother started 2004, and then I jumped in and helped him as a contributor around 2016, and from that point on, and then anyways, so much going on today. I think the one thing the Gateway Pundit has tried to do is just share the truth and get the big stories out, the stories that our media won't share. And quite frankly, they're the big stories in America today.
Exactly right.
Anymore, and that's why I think there's a massive change. People are going more and more to the internet, to sites like yours, and I even have a site now, joehoft.com. We're all just trying to build information so that people can get it and understand what's really going on. And so a couple pieces. Last week, you heard of this piece at the Gateway Pundit, the Jim, and actually a couple of people that write for him from Michigan, Patty McMurray and an attorney with her. His name's Ben. They came up with this police report that they were provided, all redacted, but it showed that there was an incident before the 2020 election in October 8th. A lady walked into a Muskegon County and dropped off a bunch of voter registration applications that were completed, 10,000 of them. And so that was the estimate, roughly maybe 10,000. It's like, where does she get them? Can you imagine her dropping these off? Right. How many boxes would that take? And what happened is they started looking into them. They looked, fraudulent. There were signatures that were the same. Addresses weren't real. Phone numbers weren't real. The signatures didn't match to those signatures on record. So anyways, it led to a police investigation. There was a report created, and it was buried ultimately by the corrupt Attorney General there and by the corrupt FBI. And yet at the same time in Michigan, at that time, looking back, that's when the FBI was creating a make-believe, manufacturing this kidnapping of the governor of Whitmer of Michigan. So they were focused on that, this manufactured crime, and they ignored and buried the real crime that was over here. And as they looked into it, they found different offices around Michigan, and there was one where they found semi-automatic rifles with silencers, and pay cards and bags of them. And so it was an operation, and they got away with it. This lady, Jim mentioned this to me. He remembers 10 years ago or so in St. Louis, there were some people that manufactured some voter records or whatever, and maybe 10, and they were thrown in prison. And here we're talking about thousands, just thousands. So it's a big deal. It's spread countrywide. I looked into it a bit and noticed that the firm GBI Strategies, LLC, is not even a going concern now, according to Tennessee, where their address is. According to the Secretary of State's office, it was dissolved in 2017.
You guys really do a lot of research here.
Yeah, it's
I guess you almost have a whole team of people researching all of this.
Not really. Not really. It's just us, just kind of following the lead and running with it and looking into it and getting tips from people. And that's it. People will send share information, and we got to vet it and make sure it's accurate, and which we do. Anyways, it's amazing what happened there. A big story that Jim had at the Gateway Pundit this morning was this January 6er. This guy who they show, he was arrested in January of 2021. They've moved him around to 17 different jails around the country. And I believe the reason for that is that once you're in a jail for a certain period of time, that will count against any sentencing that might go against you. But if they move you, then none of that counts. So he's been in 17. It starts over. So this guy's been in 17 jails. He's gotten beaten up so bad. He has broken eye socket at one occasion. Might have lost his sight in one eye by these policemen, the Capitol Police that beat him up. I believe it was Capitol Police. Maybe it was prison guards or whatever. I think that was in D.C. But then they shopped him around, and pictures came out today of where he's been for 6 months straight. Is in a room about the size of a small closet, barely room to lay down. and his bed is a mat, like a kindergarten mat that you'd maybe slept on in, when you were 5, and his bathroom is a bucket in the corner. And that's where this guy has been for years. I sat with.
This is like Mexico.
Well, it's worse. It's bad. I talked to General Flynn this morning, and we showed him that picture, and he said, I was in charge of the terrorism and the capture of these terrorists, and the maintenance of these terrorists that we captured in the war on terror. And he said we never treated any of these, even the worst of the worst terrorists, in that manner. That's how bad that our government is coming after us today and treating good
It's
Americans.
almost like they're trying to take these people, these humans. I'm saying it like that because they're Americans,
Yeah.
but they're not treating them even human.
No.
And so
No.
just to say that they have to say they're humans, that the way they're treating these people. And look, the people that listen to that don't agree with what the J6 people did. They're the ones that listen to the narratives that say, well, they broke into the Capitol, but with people like you, the Gateway Pundit, you're putting out these stories that are showing that, hey, there's a lot more to it than what the narratives and the news media is feeding you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to look at the publications like yours,
Well,
because you're getting out the other information.
And people are doing that because since April, there was 2 polls by Rasmussen, a pretty reputable firm. One poll said 62% of Americans now believe the 2020 election was rigged. And
that's a high number.
It's 62%. It's the highest yet. And I'd argue it's growing. With this report on the police report that was buried in Michigan. It makes you wonder how many more of those reports were buried. How many things did Bill Barr turn his head to? Instead, including the Hunter Biden laptop.
Right.
How much of that, while he's telling us that there was nothing wrong with that election, that was a bold-faced lie. And he knew it.
And remember,
he knew it.
And I still point back, because I just talked to some people from Wisconsin. I've talked to some people from Pennsylvania. And remember, Bernie Sanders, do you see the YouTube video he did a couple nights before the election? He was on a late night TV, and he said, there's going to be 6 states.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if these 6 states decide the election. And it was Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and
Just he broadcast the whole thing. Said, and Trump's going to say he won them, and then we're going to count the votes, and he's not. And it's like, what the heck is that? It was all planned. There's so many hints like that. I wrote 3 books on this deal. First one was before the election. All the planning that went into this. My second book is on what happened, and this third one I just released is the cover-up. And they covered it all up. They could not let anybody unsteal their steal.
Right.
And they call, and so January 6th was one of their projects.
Right.
And that's what they did. The feds were there. Another poll that Rasmussen had in April, some 60% of Americans believe the feds were involved with January 6th. So the message is getting out. Another poll recently, 60% of Americans, or at least of Republicans, believe that the Bidens were their efforts were overseas, were for themselves and against America. Probably treasonous.
Exactly right.
And look what they've done. Look at the cost of a stolen election. We've got a man in a prison cell or jail cell
in a bucket.
In a bucket.
He's not the only one.
And a pair of underwear, and he's laying there on the floor for 60 days. Solitary confinement's torture. That's what they did with him. And it's still going on. He still hasn't had his jail. He doesn't have a trial date. That's in the United States with this regime.
That's a violation of their...
We got the economy where yesterday I saw this tweet my daughter sent me. It's 1995, the average salary of an American, 30% was spent on their mortgage because rates were 7%. Right. But houses and salaries combined, that was at 30%. In 2019, it actually went down to 29%. Houses went up, salaries went up, and rates were pretty low. And so it was only 29% of an average American family's income. In 3 years under Biden, that number's been raised to 50% due to inflation and higher rates and the higher costs of homes. The average family can't buy a home anymore. And we see it too. I talked to an economist the other day. We need a Happy Meal index, because those things have at least doubled in the last 2 years, maybe tripled. Same with all this food. I've talked to people. I mentioned that, and they say, you're right. We went to like Taco Bell the other day, and it's $50 or wherever it is. And you're like, what's going on here? Why is food, they say it's only a 12% inflation rate. No, that's not true.
And
Look at the cost of food. That and that's it. We know, we see it. I think our message here is trust your eyes, trust what you're seeing. Don't let these liars tell you something different. It's in your face.
I'm glad you're saying that, because that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, you don't have to don't ignore the narrative, ignore the news stories that about the election being safe, secure, Donald Trump, whatever. Ignore all that. Look at the small things. And that's small.
And with the election, people see all these various things that happen, and they're like, "My God, what's going on here?" And then the media, that's the most secure election ever,
right?
From CISA. And then they come out with a report 2 years later in Georgia that says, "Well, the system there that was used across the state, it's not secure. A bad actor could get in and could flip an election."
Right.
But it never happened.
It never happened.
But how do they know that?
It could, but it never does.
They cannot prove that. The first 3 things they can, and that's what was in the report. So they lie to us, and we know it, and so that came from a government body.
Right.
This corrupt government even had issue, and then the report did come out, and that's exactly what it said. That Haldeman report recently. So the systems were broke, processes broke. We're locked and kept out from reviewing any of this stuff. Those votes at that point in time, those ballots never should have been counted. All this. Trust your eyes. These people lie to us every day, and it's evil. And we've got to stay strong, pray a lot, and continue to just share the truth.
Well, thanks to people like you, thanks to the Gateway Pundit, we're getting the information that we need to be able to stay strong and get motivated. How can people find your book?
Yeah. Well, you can go to joehoft.com. I've got it advertised there. Also, it's at Amazon. Some of my books are also at Barnes & Noble. And I also have a radio show daily at tntradio.live. And you can get all my, you can listen there, or if you miss it, you can go to my website too. And where I store some of these interviews. I'll put this up there too when you send it to me, okay?
Absolutely, I'd be glad
I look forward to it.
Joe Hoft, you're amazing. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm always happy to have you on my show because, like I said, you're somebody to keep an eye on.
Great.
All right,
Thanks
everybody. Thank you so much.